What is going on, everyone? This is Eric coming at you from just outside of Hartford, Connecticut, and today we're going to continue our 2021 NFL offseason recap videos as this video focuses on the four teams of the AFC West. If you haven't seen them already, we do have 6 videos up. They focused on the AFC and NFC Easts, Norths, and Souths, and later today we will get the video that focuses on the NFC West. Without further ado, though, we will jump right in. We're going to start by discussing the offseason of the Denver Broncos. Now, they had a relatively quiet offseason to an extent. They drafted a couple players in the first 3 rounds. With the 9th overall selection, they will draft cornerback Patrick Surtain II. At 35, they would select running back Javonte Williams. At 98, they would select center Quinn Miners. And at 105, they would select linebacker Baron Browning. I say this every time. You can never have too many offensive linemen, so getting a nice center there is always good. Javonte Williams looks like he's going to have a big role this year, especially after a couple of free agency moves that happened. Surtain looks like he's going to be a starter for this team. So, now, when it comes to acquisitions, they did trade for quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. He entered a quarterback competition with the incumbent Drew Lock. And Bridgewater is currently the starter for this team. He did beat out Drew Lock. So we'll see how long it lasts. Bridgewater, he's one of those guys, just like Tyrod Taylor, that he seems to get the opportunity, but then something comes up. They also signed running back Mike Boone. Can't go wrong with him. He's a solid, he doesn't have a lot of, wear on the tires, so to speak. So he can carry some, he can get some good yardage for you. They also signed offensive tackle Cam Fleming. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they re-signed defensive tackle Shelby Harris. They signed cornerback Ronald Darby, cornerback Kyle Fuller, and they re-signed safety Justin Simmons. He is on a franchise tag, so it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it this upcoming offseason. As for Darby and Fuller, these are both guys that Darby had a good year last year. After a couple of down years in Philly, he had a good year in Washington, so he's interesting. Fuller, he's kind of very inconsistent. And then they did lose a couple players. They lost running back Philip Lindsay and tight end Nick Vannett. Definitely Lindsay's going to be missed more. Vannett is more of a blocker than anything. Lindsay, though, you can make up his production in Williams and Boone. So on the defensive side of the ball, they lost defensive tackle Jarrell Casey, who did retire, but he's more considered a Titan, so I didn't feel the need of writing retired. They also lost a pair of secondary players in cornerback AJ Boy and safety Will Parks. Nothing too crazy about losing either of those guys. Boy's probably going to be missed a bit more. Parks is more of a versatile player who can play basically all the positions in the secondary, but he wasn't doing that great. Next, we have the defending AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs. Now, they had a quiet draft for the first 3 rounds. They had 2 picks, the first of which was used to select linebacker Nick Bolton at 58, and the second was the 63rd pick, which was used to select center Creed Humphrey. So, these 2 players, Humphrey probably won't be seeing much action this year. They definitely don't want him to. They're probably going to use him on special teams. Bolton, he should get some opportunities for the team on the defensive side of the ball, and probably in special teams as well. Now, when it comes to free agency, they were somewhat busy. So they did sign running back Jerick McKinnon. They re-signed wide receiver Demarcus Robinson. Neither of those guys figure to have massive roles for the team, but still good players to have on your bench. And then they did trade for some offensive help when they got offensive tackle Orlando Brown. Now, he cost them their first round pick this year. I don't think they're complaining. Orlando Brown is a proven player. Can't go wrong with that. They re-signed offensive tackle Mike Remmers. And then they did also sign some more offensive line help when they got both guards Kyle Long and Joe Thuney. Thuney, of course, is the bigger name of the two. Kyle Long is still a solid player. Their offensive line, they saw the problems that they had during the Super Bowl, so they worked to revamp it. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, they didn't do too much. They basically signed a pair of safeties in Will Parks, who we mentioned before from Denver, and they re-signed Daniel Sorensen, who is more of a special teamer than anything. Now, they did lose some players, and mostly offensive players. So they lost running back Le'Veon Bell. Is it really a loss, though? Le'Veon just looked like he didn't want to be there. He looked mad. He just looked lost, and yeah, I don't think it's a big loss. Damian Williams, the running back, also left the team. He's a solid player, but he's not like a bell cow. They also lost fullback Anthony Sherman, who retired. Long-time fullback in the league. He actually went to UConn, so congratulations. I hope you enjoy your retirement. And wide receiver Sammy Watkins also left the team. He'll be missed to an extent. He was good when he was healthy. Offensive tackle Eric Fisher, who was the first overall pick in 2013, also left the team, as well as fellow offensive tackle Mitchell Schwartz. Essentially, the Chiefs just said, we're going to revamp our offensive line, so they got rid of both those guys. Guard Stefan Wisniewski retired after the season. He was decent. He was more of a reserve guard, though. Now, they also lost a pair of players on defense, and defensive end Tanio Campasnon, and he's okay, but not great. And cornerback Bashad Breeland, not the best, not the worst. So, Kansas City, pretty much the same team they were last year with a revamped offensive line. Next, we have the Raiders, and they were busy this offseason. So during the draft, they did draft offensive tackle Alex Leatherwood with the 17th pick. Still a bit of a head-scratcher to this moment, but we will see if the Raiders get the last laugh. Then at 43, they would select safety Trevin Moehrig, and at 79, they would go defensive end Malcolm Kuntz, and with the 80th pick, they would select safety Divine Diablo. So basically, just get some help in your secondary, get a defensive end, get an offensive tackle, build through the lines, build through the secondary, can't go wrong with that. When it comes to free agency, they signed a couple of skill players in running back Kenyon Drake and wide receiver Willie Snead. I like Snead, I like Drake. Drake's going to be like a 1B to Josh Jacobs there, so you can't complain about that. Snead, he has the potential to be like a wide receiver too, but you're probably better using him as a slot. Now, they also re-signed guard Richie Incognito. Well, it's not a story to get into this right now. Most of their moves came on the defensive side of the ball. They did make some moves on the defensive line in particular. They signed defensive end Yannick Ngakoue, and they signed a pair of defensive tackles in Gerald McCoy and Solomon Thomas. So, some solid players with some good experience. They're all mostly veterans. Thomas, I think, is going into his 5th or 6th year. They re-signed linebacker Nicholas Morrow. They recently signed linebacker KJ Wright. And then in the secondary, they signed cornerback Casey Hayward and safety Carl Joseph. So they got a bunch of veterans. They're trying to see if they can make a bit of a run this year. I don't think they're a playoff team yet, but we'll see. Now, they did lose some players as well. They lost a pair of skill players in running back Devontae Booker and wide receiver Nelson Aguilar. They also lost tight end Jason Witten, who spent 1 year with the team before retiring. I mean, none of these guys are really going to be missed all that much. Aguilar, he's a very streaky player. He had a good year last year. Let New England take that salary. I mean, you're smart to let him go, Las Vegas. They also traded away offensive tackle Trent Brown. They also traded away guard Gabe Jackson. And they also traded away center Rodney Hudson. So they lost 3 veteran offensive linemen. Could be worse. They did also lose a few players on defense, including but not limited to defensive end Takarist McKinney, defensive tackle Malik Collins, safety Jeff Heath, and safety LaMarcus Joyner. Joyner's probably the biggest name of those 4 defensive players that they lost. So, lastly, we have the Los Angeles Chargers, and it still feels weird to this day to say Las Vegas Raiders and Los Angeles Chargers, but now they had a relatively quiet offseason, at least by AFC West standards. Now, they did draft offensive tackle Rashawn Slater at 13, solid pick. They got Asante Samuel Jr., the cornerback, at 47. Love that pick so much. At 77, they got wide receiver Josh Palmer. Again, I love that pick. And then with the 97th pick, they would select tight end Trey McKitty. So, all in all, I like this draft class, at least the first 3 rounds. I like the first 3 picks. I don't know too much about McKitty, but the first 3 picks, I love them. When it came to free agency, they weren't too busy. They mostly focused on offense, getting backup quarterback Chase Daniel, tight end Jared Cook, and interior line help with guards O'Day Abushi and Matt Feeler, and then center Corey Linsley. Nothing crazy with these guys. I mean, they're all okay, but they could all easily be their replacement level, I should say. Linsley's probably better than replacement level. Lastly, we have the players that they lost. Now, they did let quarterback Tyrod Taylor go. They were never going to match his salary after what Justin Herbert did last year. They let someone else take him. Wide receiver Tyrell Williams and tight end Hunter Henry both left the team as well. Henry's definitely going to be missed. He's been such a good player, but he just can't seem to stay healthy. So Los Angeles probably decided, you know what, at this point enough is enough. He's good, but we can't just keep banking on him staying healthy. Now, they did also lose some interior line players. Guard Trey Turner left the team via free agency, and at least for half a decade, starting center Mike Pouncey retired with his brother Markeith. So hopefully they both enjoy free agency or retirement. They also lost defensive end Melvin Ingram, linebacker Nick Vigil, cornerback Casey Hayward, and safety Rayshawn Jenkins. Of this group, probably Jenkins will be missed the most, if not Hayward. Hayward's kind of nearing the end of his career, so yeah, I don't watch a lot of Chargers games, so I can't tell you if he was good or not. Now, the 2020 standings saw Kansas City run away with this division with a 14-2 record. Las Vegas finished in second with an 8-8 record. Los Angeles went 7-9, and Denver went 5-11. How do I have them finishing this year? I have Kansas City winning this division once more. I have Los Angeles jumping into second, Denver jumping into third, and Las Vegas being last. Kansas City's pretty self-explanatory. Mahomes is healthy now. He still has the same supporting cast he had last year. He has a better offensive line, at least on paper, than he did last year. Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be able to break out this year, fingers crossed at least, with a new offensive line. They have some new players to help out as well. Travis Kelce is just, he doesn't look like he's getting any older, so always good. I have Los Angeles making a leap here. I'm a believer in Justin Herbert. I think he's definitely going to do well this year. Sophomore slump hopefully doesn't hit him. I'd like to see him succeed this year. He's a good young player. They have some players there to help him. The real thing with Los Angeles is, how is your secondary going to perform this year? And will Mike Williams finally have a good year? Denver and Las Vegas were my two close teams here. I chose Denver just because I love the skill players that they have. They have so many weapons on offense. If all these players can stay healthy, specifically in the receiving core, Denver is just too strong offensively to lose. Plus, the return of Von Miller, who missed all of last year with an injury, will be crucial for this team's success. Las Vegas, don't get me wrong, I could justifiably put them in second place to an extent. They just kind of got the short end of the stick for me because I don't trust Derek Carr over Herbert or Mahomes and even Tyrod Taylor. Teddy Bridgewater. So, I mean, it is what it is. Derek Carr is Derek Carr. I don't know how I like the offensive line either. That's my big concern with the Raiders. But anyway, that was the AFC West. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Later today, we will be releasing the NFC West recap. All other divisions were posted in the past 3 days. Have a good rest of your day.